New Nordic.
House Speaker Mike Johnson says he's confident that a continuing resolution will pass tomorrow to fund the government until the end of the fiscal year and avoid a government shutdown at the end of the week. The vote's expected to be tight. House Republicans can only afford to lose one vote with a slim majority. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries.
It is not something we could ever support. House Democrats will not be complicit in the Republican effort to hurt the American people.
Hundreds demonstrated in Lower Manhattan to protest the immigration police arrest of Columbia grad student Mahmoud Khalil, who helped organize last year's pro-Palestinian protest on the Columbia campus. Professor Yenon Cohen of Columbia's Center for Jewish and Israel Studies compared the arrest to tactics used to detain Palestinians in Gaza.
As an Israeli American, I'm extremely troubled that such practices have been imported to the United States and manifest themselves on our campus.
The fate of a French Impressionist painting once stolen by the Nazis from a Jewish woman is in question again. The U.S. Supreme Court revived the case today. At issue is whether the painting, Camille Pissarro's Rue Saint Honor in the Afternoon, effective reign, should remain in the hands of a prominent Spanish museum where it now hangs, or with the descendants of the woman. Chuck Sievertson, ABC News.
Oh, no. Stomach issues again?
Stomach issues?
Who are you?
Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
5:05 now on this beautiful Monday afternoon as we've been enjoying some sunshine, temperatures in the mid-50s, and it looks like tomorrow more of the same. I'll get to your weather forecast coming up in just a minute. It will feel right with your KVNU News Update this hour, brought to you by Roof Rescue. Well, Ogden police are asking for the public's help identifying the person or people responsible for hanging a giant anti-Trump banner across the top of the city's tallest building. Now, the message, which was placed over the weekend on Cache Valley Bank's sign on the First Security Bank building at 24th and Washington, had read, "Americans, Trump betrays you." Now, it was hung sometime Friday night or early Saturday morning and remained in place until around 11 o'clock Saturday. Now, it wasn't immediately known what time the banner was removed or by whom. The Ogden Police Department Saturday afternoon, though, took to social media seeking information about the culprit. Now, the department began its statement stating that it recognizes and respects every individual's constitutionally protected right of free speech and assembly, but it emphasized that those rights must be exercised without breaking other laws. Now, the department described its position on the crime as nonpartisan and said they are committed to the identification and prosecution of all criminal offenders regardless of what other political, ideological, or social viewpoints they might have. Now, police are asking anyone with information about the incident to contact law enforcement. Well, there has been more fallout after Utah Senator Daniel Thatcher, who has been a Republican since he joined the Senate in 2011, announced Friday he's leaving the party. The West Valley City Republican, frequently a thorn in the side of GOP lawmakers, said on Friday that he was done with the party and is joining the Utah Forward Party, making him the first third-party lawmaker in the legislature in decades. Now, Thatcher said in an interview that the fact of the matter was that only two major parties are going to win in the state, and he thought the only way to break the deadlock is to have a force that is neither. Now, there was not one single tipping point, according to Thatcher, who spoke to the Salt Lake Tribune, but he said there was a culmination of several decisions by Senate leadership. Now, last August, Thatcher was one of two Republicans who had voted against amending the Utah Constitution to let legislators repeal citizen-passed ballot initiatives, saying that it would give us the biggest black eye that we could have as a legislature. Well, in a two-vehicle crash that left a pickup truck upside down over the weekend on I-215 in West Valley City reportedly did not involve any major injuries, according to the Utah Highway Patrol. The Utah Department of Transportation reported the incident happened at around 3:30 on Saturday. The crash, along with the details of how it started, are still being investigated, according to the Utah Highway Patrol. But it reportedly involved a car and a pickup truck with 9 occupants between the two vehicles. Now, it caused the truck to roll and came to a rest upside down on the highway. According to troopers, everyone was able, though, to walk away from the scene of the crash with only minor injuries. And a commercial facility in Ogden caught fire Friday morning, resulted in an estimated $100,000 in damage. Ogden City firefighters say they were dispatched to the fire along Wall Avenue at about 4 a.m. Upon arrival, crews said they found heavy smoke coming from the second story of a large commercial facility. Firefighters immediately evacuated the structure, and crews then began battling the blaze and were able to contain the flames to a single room. Now, the cause of that fire remains under investigation. Well, expect to see clear skies continuing through the rest of the afternoon as temperatures been in the high 50s today. Tonight, we're going to drop into the mid to high 20s as we'll see mostly clear skies overnight and then be back into the mid to high 50s again tomorrow. Same for Wednesday. It's Thursday and into Friday when we'll start to see some rain and even a possibility of rain and snow mixing for Friday and into the weekend. And news and weather this hour brought to you by Roof Rescue. I'm Will Feelwright with your KVNU News Update.
Hi, I'm Wendy, co-founder of Bell Sculpt. I know what it's like to feel uncomfortable in your own skin, worrying about how you look, feeling drained, and just not like yourself. Hormone changes, pregnancy, or aging can lead to weight gain and challenges that aren't your fault. That's why I believe so strongly in what we do at Bell Sculpt. I've had a procedure myself, and it transformed more than just my shape. It boosted my energy, metabolism, and confidence. If you're ready to feel like yourself again, Bell Sculpt is here to help. Book your free consultation at bellsculpt.fm.
Information and news you need. News Talk KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Get your furnace fixed. Call Gary Riggs. Get your furnace fixed. Call Gary Riggs. If you're having heating trouble and you need your furnace fixed, just pick up the phone and call Gary Riggs. 435-512-6633. We'll come to you. Our service fee is low, just $25. We repair all brands and have certified installers. Get your furnace fixed. Call Gary Riggs. Get your furnace fixed. Call Gary Riggs.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. We talked about it in hour one. It was a surprise to everyone on Friday when a last-minute move it was made public to basically boot the state auditor from the Capitol to the plan originally was to the Senate building, which my first thought was that building's locked outside of the 45-day session. That doesn't make much sense. Thankfully, the legislature, whatever the thorn in their side or whatever it was, thorn in their toe was, they pulled that plan back, and the state auditor's office will stay at the very accessible year-round Utah State Capitol. And one of the reasons this was so important for me to see this happen is just recently the state auditor announced the implementation of something new for the public, a couple of new things for the public, but specifically here first, something called the Transparency Center. I was so excited to see this, and also excited to welcome, for the first time on our show since being elected, our good friend Tina Cannon, state auditor of the state of Utah. And Tina, thank you so much for making the time for this. I should let everybody know that you had planned to be able to take a little break from all of this legislative business, and then I called, and we really appreciate you doing that. It is so important. What your predecessor, John Dougal, did with that office, and your promise to take that and run with that even further, it's not appreciated enough, definitely not by lawmakers, but even by the public. It means so much, though, to see such a focus on transparency and just reemphasizing how important it is. I'm really excited that you're there. Let me say that right out of the gate.
Well, I appreciate that, Jason. And I really appreciate the offer to be on today to talk about transparency, because it is a passion of mine. I have inherited one of the best data analytic teams in the nation, and I mean that with all sincerity. We have a great data analytics team, and we are able to take every financial transaction for all approximately 1,800 government agencies across the state of Utah.
Wow.
And we take all of those transactions and we put them in searchable formats to help the taxpayer know what we know as state auditors, exactly where that money is going, who it's being given to, what it's being used for. And then we give, with that knowledge, hopefully the public is able to make really informed decisions when they are asked to vote for representation in any of these government agencies. You can really see where your tax money is being spent.
That is, honestly, for the public to be able to use these tools. I've mentioned this several times on the show, and in hour one, letting people know that you'd be joining us in hour two. You know, the data's there. Utah does a great job of budget transparency, I think, especially compared to some other states. But it's not exactly usable for everyone, right? The data that is available, you have to kind of know what you're looking for or know where to start looking. And this is basically saying, let's take that and make it usable for the average Utahn.
I know it's hard to believe that most people don't spend a lot of time in a 200-page annual financial comprehensive report like I do.
Sure.
It's kind of, you know, somebody, we do it so you don't have to. There's where we'll go with that one. But putting that information, and we've taken with this latest tool with the state revenues and expenditures, we have taken all of those transactions out of those annual financial reports and put them in a 20-year table so you can really see the growth in the different revenue sources for the state. And then scrolling down on that same page, you can take that same look over 20 years to see where the expenditures have grown and changed over time. It's really, we geek out over this stuff in my office, but I think even the most non-financial person will look at this and really have a better understanding of just how much revenue we're talking. You know, during the legislature, you saw all sorts of news stories about $30 billion. There is actually, by what the legislature is making decisions for during the legislative session, they actually have oversight over almost $60 billion at this point in time in how many is collected, how many is spent from colleges and universities right back down to your property tax. So we helped break this down and then give you a good idea of how it's all spent.
That is amazing because, as you said, you know, many people, if you've ever seen one of these reports, it instantly gives you a headache, and that it kind of makes it useful for the average or useless for the average person. This is a way so that anyone could go into the Transparency Center or online and see the trends, see where growth is in spending has grown, see where growth in revenue has grown and shrunk, and it really allows you to understand where the state's at and where we're going and what your taxpayer dollars are doing. And it's such an important thing. And Tina, again, I am so glad to hear that this is staying at the state capitol because that means year round, anyone can go in and use this during the regular operating hours, right?
Yes, and we staff the office so that if you have questions about how to use it or if you have a question about government, you can follow along at home. It's transparent.utah.gov, and you can see all of the different dashboards that you can use for the different way to find the data. We'll track through Project Kids. We can go for every student in Utah at every school. We will tell you how much it costs to educate that child, from administrative costs and education or teacher costs, and then right down to school lunch and transportation. So there are a lot of fun dashboards out there that will dig deep. I tell people all the time that still to this day, because you can look up any government employee salary across the state, and still we have to give a shout out to Kyle Whittingham at the U. He is the most searched person on Transparent Utah.
Really?
For how much every year for what he makes. All of us are out there, including me. I'm coming in far, far behind Kyle Whittingham. So
that is funny.
It is fun.
I guess with some of the years they've had in basketball and football, that might make sense.
But it's also a great tool because you can search by job title and then see what across the state, what different people are paid for the same job title.
That's amazing.
So it gives, also for those of, we're seeing a shift in insurance. So if under Health Cost Compare, if you're looking to pay out of pocket for a medical procedure, you can go out there and find out just where the best place to get a certain medical procedure is. You can compare costs across different medical providers to find the best place to go to get a certain procedure. You have to have the medical code for what you're asking to have done. But after that, we give you a really great indicator of where the best place to go for that is. There's just so much information that we have. I joke with people all the time that we are the Smith & Edwards of data for the state. We have everything you could possibly need. We just have to find it.
That is a really, really good comparison because I mean, yes, the financial transparency is one of the areas that Utah excels, and yet making it usable has proven to be a challenge. So that's a perfect analogy, Smith & Edwards. Everyone listening knows exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So our next one, I'm excited about our next one that we've got coming too. So we publish all of the audit reports for every agency across the state as well. And we're working on a finding database so that you can go out and find in a searchable format where the negative issues have been for a particular entity, or if they've had none, if they've had clean audit reports, to make it easier so you can see a trend over time if the same problem keeps happening. And so we're really being able to show all of the things, all of the information that we have as state auditors, where the oversight truly lies in the independence of the state auditor. I teased Derek Brown that his job is to defend all of the government agencies as the Attorney General, and my job is to keep them in line.
Sure.
So we publish all of the information that we have so that the public just knows what we know. And we were transparency before transparency was cool.
That's right.
We appreciate Elon Musk following our example, but
Utah was already doing it.
Yep, Utah did it first and did it best.
That is, it has been honestly amazing to see this work grow. And I love your phrasing there. This is, this isn't, for listeners out there, this isn't an effort to catch people or get them in trouble. I mean, sometimes it does, but that's not the goal. The goal is, one, this is your right as a taxpayer to know this stuff, to see this data.
Yep.
And two, it does bring this level of accountability in, because if the best thing in most situations, whether it's government or business, is to know someone might check. Right?
Yep, that's exactly right. What you don't measure, what you don't check, you don't measure. And that's our goal, is to make sure that everyone knows that there is proper oversight over their money. This is the other thing I like to remind people, that government is not designed to be efficient. Government is designed to be transparent. This is someone else's money. And so our job is to make sure that money is used only for what we said we were going to use it for, and that it is used efficiently and effectively on whatever it's used for. And that's, as we are looking at all of those things, we feel like it's our obligation to also give that information to the taxpayer. Like I mentioned, I'm independently elected statewide. I am not appointed by the governor. I am elected by the people, and I answer to the people. So we provide as much information back to those people as we possibly can so that they feel good about how the rest of government is operating. And as you point out, it's a great way to keep everybody on their toes, just making sure they know we are watching and we are reporting back.
Sure. And it works. That's the best part about it. That for listeners, one-stop shop website for all of this that we've discussed here, auditor.utah.gov. And I've linked to that on our Facebook page. You can connect there with Transparent Utah. You can connect with the Utah Health Cost Comparison tool. You can work with, there are many interactive dashboards.
Project Kids, job title search. We put together the property tax tool as the conversation has really shifted over the rise in property tax assessments. We did a comparison across the state over what property values were doing. You can really see it's a heat map, so you can see where they're rising, where they're falling, and you can see how you compare to the rest of your neighborhood or other neighborhoods across the state for what your property values are doing and why that tax assessment is what it is.
That is amazing. And again, all of this at auditor.utah.gov, including the new tool we've been discussing here that was announced just last week that allows you to go through the $55.8 billion in total revenues with the $30 billion budget on top of that is expenditures and actually
that's included in that. Yeah,
sorry,
so you got the
included.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
right.
that's included in that.
Don't panic. That was misphrasing on my part for the listeners out there.
I don't want to audit another $30 billion there,
Oh,
Jason.
I can't
Don't give me
imagine.
that.
I'm still surprised. Well, I was happy to see that the budget went down a little bit, but it the trend has been.
Oh, don't let them fool you. That's not how that went. So my job is to make sure everybody knows that's not how that went.
It didn't actually go down.
There are areas that go down, and that's what's so fun about that state revenue and expenditures is you're able to select the funds, and I'd encourage everyone to go out there and select the funds, and particularly the income tax fund. And you can see that decrease in time with the income tax.
Okay.
So it will also show you, and remember, this is on a fiscal year, so it ends June 30th and starts again on July 1. So you'll see that cutoff is a little not calendar year, it's a fiscal year. But you can see the drop in income tax revenues, but then go look at the sales tax revenues and see what they've done over time, and you'll see the increase in sales tax revenues. So that's our point. There are funds that decrease. There are funds that have increased, but overall we are seeing a massive increase. I would say massive, but I'm a taxpayer, so that's how I see it. The legislature would say it was a normal year. It's still a modest year. But as a taxpayer, when I see what the revenues have been on our investments, what the revenues have been through the colleges and universities, and even the Department of Alcoholic Beverages, I would say that the state of Utah had a very robust fiscal 2024, and it looks the same for fiscal 2025.
That is, and those trends can help us, even lawmakers can help us understand how we can keep that in check a bit, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to say it. That's why the dashboard, as we've designed it, you can see those growth, that the chart grow over time with all of those, and you can see where there is a shifting between the revenues and the funds. And you will see in the stacked bar chart, when the revenues decrease, that's when you're seeing investment revenues go down. Even the investments into the retirement accounts for state employees, when those go down, you'll see them below the bottom of the bar. That's happened 4 times in 20 years.
Wow.
But those are paper, so they don't actually sell. Those are a paper loss. You have to keep that in mind, that you'll see a decrease in the overall value. But unless you actually sell the asset, it's not a realized loss, and they do come back over time. But sometimes that trend down has been dramatic, and sometimes it just bounces right back up. So it's a great way. You can select that too, so you can see what the fiduciary funds are, the money we're holding for other people, and you can see what those investments are doing over time. And if you remember, where the legislature started this year was talking about money in higher ed.
Yeah.
We designed the higher ed expenditure tool to show what the revenues are. But even on the state revenue and expenditures, you can see that the largest revenue source for the state of Utah, if you do the year-over-year comparison and you break it down by fund, you can see that it was the University of Utah holds the record for fiscal 2024 for having the largest increase in revenue overall. In fact, when we did, it's actually amazing. Over all of the
fascinating.
The year-over-year growth over revenues was at the U during fiscal 2024. So if you go into the higher ed expenditures, we created a separate chart for the University of Utah because its revenues are so far and above and beyond what any of the other universities were that it skews the data to make it look like Utah State is just no big deal. And being an Aggie, that really bothered me, so I broke off the U and put the rest of them to compare.
That is great.
So that Utah State doesn't look like it doesn't have anything, because it does. It has a substantial amount of revenue and endowment and that it has. So anyway, so it's
that
fun
is
for
great.
us. Like I said, we geek out over this. We had such a great time coming up with these, and there are more that are coming. And as your listeners play with this tool, if you have some suggestions for what you'd like to see, we'd love to hear it. Contact us at auditor.utah.gov or email me, let me know on Facebook, however you can find me, reach out and tell me. We'd love to hear your ideas for what you would like to see more transparency in. And
that is
and
amazing.
Let's see, we should do a contest to see who wins. We'll give an award.
I would love to see that. Honestly, and please, listeners, take the state auditor up on this. State Auditor Tina Cannon, our guest again. Go to auditor.utah.gov, submit a suggestion if you have one for what you'd like to see next. But while you're there, check out Transparent Utah for the new budget transparency tool. Project Kids, as the auditor mentioned, and also Utah Health Cost Compare, an amazing resource that I still am amazed was even possible. And this is all part of keeping your government, basically, that you're paying for, transparent and accountable to you. So please check it out, auditor.utah.gov. And State Auditor, I've already kept you 4 minutes longer than I promised to, but if you forgive me, one last question I have for you, because I personally am dying to know this. But obviously, as we discussed when you were running, when you joined us on the show as a candidate, big shoes to fill. John Dougal was a powerhouse as an auditor, and he turned that office into something it hadn't been for decades. Where would you like to take it from here? If you could just wave a magic wand, is there a first audit you can't wait to get underway? Is there
Oh, that's a loaded question.
that was kind of unfair, right? Yeah, let's forget I asked that one.
So we never publish those. No, we do. We have annual audits that we do every year on the federal funds and on all of the state agencies, and then we have a hotline where anytime your listeners have a concern about how money is being spent by government across the state, they're welcome to go to hotline.auditor.gov or hotline.utah.gov, or there's a link on auditor.utah.gov. You can find it. There's a hotline to report any concerns that they would have. So those ones always keep me guessing on what's going to come through there, but we've had some substantial ones come through there, including a couple in Cache County.
Interesting.
But there was such an emphasis through John on the data analytics. It is a great tool, but my goal was to make sure that people knew and understood what was there. It was shocking to me as I campaigned how few people knew about the website. So we wanted people to know that it was there at all, and then how to use it, which was why we opened the Transparent Utah room at the Capitol. As part of my office, we took one of the executive offices there and just opened that door out into the rotunda so that anyone who was there during public business hours for the Capitol would be able to step in and then have us help them use the tool if they needed. Or like I said, you can just use it at home and play with it and then email any ideas. And then we offer, if you are a data geek and you want to dig deeper into some of this information, we'll contact us. We'll set you up as a super user and we'll let you do some data analytics on it yourself.
That is amazing.
So where I would really like to go with it is the next step in auditing is being able to analyze a data set to find the outliers. And like I said, we collect two different types of data, the individual financial transactions and then the annual financial reports. And we show both now on the website. It used to be just those financial transactions. My introduction was putting those annual financial reports out there, and the future one is going to be the findings in those financial statements. So two things. I wanted more people to know, and then I wanted them to be able to see the annual financial reports to see that trend over time. So you weren't just looking at one financial transaction. You were able to see overall what the state was doing revenue and expenditure-wise. That was my goal.
That is fascinating.
And we did it in our first 60 days.
I was going to say, you've only been there since January.
I hit the ground running and then some.
That is so cool to hear. And honestly, all of this such a benefit to taxpayers, to good government, keeping them on their toes, but also, this type of work for listeners out there, you've heard me go on about this forever. It forces people to be creative. It forces people to rethink how they're doing things on a somewhat regular basis. And that always has served the state well. And it has been fascinating. And Tina Cannon, I feel bad for how much time I've taken here.
No, you're good.
But we should do this again soon. Absolutely. Anytime.
We always say that, and you never call me, Jason. You never call me.
Let's make it a monthly thing.
Anytime. All right.
Honestly, I'm sure there is so much we could talk about each and every month. I will get with your staff and we'll see if we can work something out, because we could really do that.
Let's do it.
And it's a pleasure to have you join us. It's been too long, and my fault, not yours. And just honestly love what we're seeing there. And again, for listeners, transparent.utah.gov, auditor.utah.gov for one-stop shopping on all of this. You can download raw data. You can go through these transparency tools and these various dashboards they have to help you understand data that is, in essence, yours and work being done by the government you are paying for. These interactive dashboards, from Project Kids to the Utah Health Cost Comparison Tool and more, are just a great example of what this information can be used for. And none of it would be happening without an aggressive auditor. So we've got that, and thank you for that. Again, our guest, State Auditor Tina Cannon, thank you for taking the time today. And I swear, I'm going to reach out to your staff. We'll see if we can make this a regular thing.
All right. I'm holding you to it this time, Jason.
I will do it.
Always fun. We always have fun.
Thank you so much for your time. And it's been a long session. If, not that you need my permission or anyone's, but go take a break, because I'm sure they're not done yet.
I'm going golfing now.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Jason.
My pleasure. To my listeners as well, a pleasure to have you joining us as well. Stick around. We'll get back to our legislative recap. Transportation funding changes that might affect Cache County. That's coming up after this look at the news with KVNU's Will Feel Right.
Well, thank you, Jason. Utah State University announcing budget cuts to employees, which will begin with voluntary buyouts, operational cuts, and could lead to possible layoffs. USU's interim president, Al Smith, emailed faculty and staff on Friday explaining how a combined $17.3 million in budget cuts from the legislature between last year and this year would mean that USU needs to make the cuts by July 1st. Now, Smith wrote that it'll mean difficult decisions and significant changes in some areas of the university. Last year, the legislature had made a 1.5% budget cut of $4.8 million to USU's budget. To manage the deficit, USU will begin with voluntary separations first, then move to layoffs and operational cost reductions. Now, Smith said he understood the concern and anxiety this raises and assured everyone that they are centered on the long-term health of the institution as they proceed with the planning process. Now, Smith said he would provide more information about the implementation of the budget cuts at an upcoming university forum for faculty and staff coming up on March 20th. Well, Utah Governor Spencer Cox saying that he will not veto a bill to bar prominent displays of pride flags in schools and government buildings. Now, he said that he would not comment further on what bills he would sign or veto, saying that he will review each bill, noting that he has 20 days after the legislative session ends to make his decisions. Now, Cox, however, said that he had asked supporters of pride flags in schools how they feel about MAGA flags there, and said that they told him they are against them. Now, House Bill 77 made it through the legislature on the second to the last day of the session, prompting a rally outside the Capitol on Friday. The demonstration drew several hundred people who unfurled a huge pride flag, with dozens holding it along the edges and other demonstrators leading chants against the bill. Now, the Utah ACLU sent a letter to Cox urging a veto, saying that the measure threatens free speech for everyone. Well, a driver was found dead along I-15 after leading police on a chase through southern Utah. Now, a spokesperson for the Utah Highway Patrol said they had tried to pull the individual over for driving recklessly. Now, the vehicle, however, fled and crashed on I-15 near milepost 74. The driver died at the scene. An investigation into that crash is ongoing. And two people who trespassed on Canyonlands National Park have been fined $1,500 and banned from federal public lands for various lengths and assigned probation. Roxanne McKnight and Dusty Spencer from Colorado trespassed into a fenced-off site on park grounds and were later accused of stealing artifacts. Now, McKnight and Spencer were seen entering the Cave Springs Cowboy Camp area back in March of last year. Despite fencing and multiple warning signs prohibiting entry, the two reportedly handled some of the historic artifacts that are stored in that area. Now, according to the United States Attorney's Office District of Utah, McKnight was sentenced to a 1-year ban from federal public lands in Utah and a 1-year probation, while Spencer was sentenced to a 2-year ban from federal public lands in Utah and also 2 years probation. Both were ordered to pay fines totaling $1,500. Well, it's been a gorgeous afternoon as temperatures were in the high 50s today, and now tonight we're going to be back into the mid to high 20s overnight, back into the mid to high 50s for tomorrow. Sunny skies are going to continue into Wednesday. It's just Wednesday night into Thursday is when we'll start to see an increase of clouds, and that's going to begin with a chance of showers Thursday, leading to a mix of rain and snow for Friday and into the weekend as temperatures are going to get back into the mid to high 30s. And news and weather this hour brought to you by Bell Sculpt, helping you achieve the look you've always dreamed of. Get more information by visiting bell.fm. And I'm Will Theolright with your KVNU News Update.
ABC News, I'm Chuck Sievertson. Analysts say worries about a trade war and possible recession sent Wall Street into another nosedive. The S&P 500 dropped 2.7%. The Dow dropped 890 points. The Nasdaq lost 4%. Canada and Mexico slapping tariffs on some U.S. goods in retaliation to expected U.S. tariffs this week. ABC News Chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce.
Wednesday, Trump's tariffs on steel and aluminum coming into the country are set to go into effect, which could mean that by Memorial Day, Americans will be paying more for everything from washing machines and toasters to canned goods and cars.
White House statement says business leaders have responded to President Trump's agenda with trillions in investment commitments that will create thousands of jobs. A source close to President Zelensky says Ukraine will propose test ceasefires with Russia on long-range strikes from the air and sea when it meets with U.S. officials in Saudi Arabia Tuesday. This is ABC News.
Did you lose your fruit tree harvest last year? Don't let pests and disease take over again. Now's the time to protect your trees with Logan Extermination's Dormant Tree Spray Services. This time-sensitive treatment stops insects, insect eggs, and diseases before they start, keeping your trees healthy all season long. Logan Extermination will treat all trees and offers season-long protection packages too. Don't wait. Schedule today. Call Logan Extermination at 752-8450. That's 752-8450. Logan Extermination, a division of Anderson Seed and Garden.
Disasters don't wait for a convenient time. When the unexpected strikes, call the trusted team at Blue Sky. Remember, Blue Sky is that same great ARS team you know and trust.
This is Tom with Blue Sky Restoration. When disaster strikes, whether it's a flood, fire, mold damage, or an unforeseen accident, Blue Sky will clean up, repair, and restore your home or business like it was before. No disaster is too big or too small. For all your restoration needs, you can trust our Blue Sky team.
Join us each week for Music and the Spoken Word featuring the Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square, the longest-running continuous weekly network broadcasting the world. Each episode features modern and traditional arrangements of spiritual, classical, and contemporary music and a timely, inspiring message. Truly an uplifting program that will have you returning each week. Music and the Spoken Word with the Tabernacle Choir.
Sunday mornings at 8 and again in the afternoons at 6 on News Talk KVNU.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Tuesday on This Morning, America's First News. President Trump has been full speed ahead so far in his second term. In what ways could this affect Republicans in future elections? Also, it's been 5 years since the COVID pandemic began, upending the housing market. Here are the results for owners and dreamers. And the most American cars based on 5 criteria like assembly location. Tuesday on This Morning, America's First News. From 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM. Your station for news and talk.
something better. Here on the streets of Bakersfield.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. False start there. Whew. What a day. Really excited to be able to talk with the state auditor. And one more time, for those just tuning in, if you missed it, I'm sorry. Grab the podcast tonight or tomorrow for the People show, because we're really lucky. This will be 2 auditors in a row now with the same attitude towards government transparency. And again, none of this is being done to catch. I mean, it does occasionally catch bad actors, but that's not the goal necessarily. The goal is to keep government accountable to the people who are funding it, taxpayers. And it's your right to know where the money's coming from, where it's going, how they're spending it, the trends over the years and decades. It's your right to know what is happening in everything from school districts to the state legislature. It is your right to know. And the data, when it comes to the budget, there are some problem areas in Utah. The legislature has a huge problem with transparency when it comes to themselves. They need to work on that. And we as members of the public need to pressure them to remember the importance of being transparent about their own business. But when it comes to the budget, Utah does really well, seeing the money, basically. And you can find that at auditor.utah.gov. But State Auditor Tina Cannon, again, just 60 days into office, is taking all of this data that honestly, you see it, and sometimes your head just starts to swim. And they're making this useful. They're visualizing it. They're creating graphs and pie charts and making it so that you can look at this and understand. Like, say you want to know what the income tax trends over the last 20 years are in Utah. How has it grown, and in what financial sectors or what areas of business? And it will allow you to do that. I mean, it's amazing stuff. She also mentioned Project Kids, which is a performance audit of public education in general that integrates both the regular financial auditing, but they also do operational audits and highlight, where project flows and things like that could be better. And then, of course, the Utah Health Cost Compare, which is a really convenient way to compare the cost of a bunch of, very common, widely used health procedures. And you can see where it's costing less or costing more. You can also look this up for traditional medical procedures and medications as well. That's all, again, at auditor.utah.gov. And I'm not joking. I actually already texted her staff during the break there. And I'm going to see if we can make a monthly thing with the state auditor, because there's so much to talk about. It's amazing. So, all right. Moving on a bit, this was this kind of surprised me. Honestly, I didn't expect this to come. But if you remember, Logan has been experimenting a bit when it comes to renewable and clean energies. Part of this, of course, is a lesson that, really didn't need to be learned, but it was really hammered home recently. If you remember, there was an announcement a couple of summers ago where Logan City was asking residents to help them save power for a 2-week period. One of the reasons for that is that due to, there's a bunch of different factors. Wildfires in California taking a big chunk of the power grid out. Water issues here in Utah that were at risk, at least, of shutting down major contributors to Utah's power grid, like the Flaming Gorge area. Specifically, the water was so low, they were worried those turbines at the dam might stop turning. And that's 75% of Utahns get some power, at least, from that dam. And so there was concern that in response to this, a lot of the utilities were kind of raising their purchasing rates for power in anticipation of there being a shortage. They do that to kind of discourage what's called, power gluttony. And so Logan City said, hey, if we don't reduce our power usage over the next couple of weeks, at least a little bit, we're going to pay a lot of money for this. Taxpayers will pay a lot of money for this because we're going to have to buy power, which they do all the time. That part wasn't new. But we're going to have to buy power at ridiculously high rates. So the less power we have to buy over the next 2 weeks, the more money we'll save taxpayers. And Logan residents were great. They helped out. The mayor told us it was a success. They were able to save enough power. They didn't have to buy it nearly as much as they normally would have. And that's great. So, but with that in mind, Logan City and every city, having experiences like that, they're kind of eyeing up ways to further offset. Now, to be fair, I think it's unrealistic to think Logan City or any city anytime, probably in our lifetimes at least, will ever be entirely power independent, meaning they generate all the power they need for all the city's residents. That's probably not a realistic goal, but every little bit that a city can do to be less dependent on buying power from the larger utilities, the better. And Logan benefits a lot from having their own power generation options, hydro and things like that. There are other cities in Utah that have done the same. With Tooele is working on a big wind project, because it's always windy out there, that will go directly into their power supply, and that'll allow them to buy less. And it's smart. It's smart business for a city with the taxpayer's dollar in mind. Logan City has been experimenting along several different lines, and one of them recently was an experiment with this battery storage pilot project that many cities were involved in throughout the West. Logan City, one of them. And then that pilot project kind of came and went. And we all know, if you've followed renewable energies in general, that battery storage technology isn't quite where it's advanced a lot, but it isn't quite where it needs to be yet. And so this headline kind of caught me by surprise, but it's very interesting and I think has a bright future. This is at cachevalleydaily.com, but a recommendation by local energy advisors to Logan City is that they actually get serious and look into a big solar array project. This is, again, something that I expected, but it's coming a little bit earlier than I thought. And the reasons for that are kind of interesting as well. Again, the story by Charlie Schill at cachevalleydaily.com will break this all down for you, but members of the city's what they call the Renewable Energy and Sustainability Advisory Board. And this, if you're curious, you can go see the makeup by name and all of that. But in short, it's basically a group of people who are very knowledgeable about energy industry in general. They've got researchers at Utah State University who help to inform them. They've got city and state leaders, former and current, who are plugged in with this entirely. And then, of course, they get some information from national energy industry officials and more. And they throw this all together, and their job is to just basically meet on a somewhat regular basis. I think it's every couple of months they meet and talk about what they've learned and then make recommendations to the city. And the goal here is to both, move increasingly towards renewable and cleaner energy, but also, again, the primary goal, I think, is to increase ways for the city to be at least more independent of the larger utilities who raise their prices frequently. But in times like we saw that drought year and the wildfires in California combining, we saw energy prices go up quite a bit. So this is also a goal of trying to save the taxpayer money, assuming that happens on a more frequent basis. So they recommended that Logan consider, this was a recommendation to the Logan City Council, and they recommended that the council consider constructing a 100-acre solar energy farm with battery storage with existent technology. And again, assuming the technology gets better, it has every year, this will be even more effective. But they believe that it's feasible now. And proposal was brought up during the regular council meeting last week. And this Renewable Energy and Sustainability Advisory Board, the chair outlined the overall, how the panel got here to this recommendation, basically, and said what they found is that it will bring in some balancing for the city when it comes to reliability, affordability, and sustainability. And so this proposed solar farm and battery storage facility, now this was a rough guess, but it would probably, based on current, what they could find about current markets, it would probably run around $60 million. And it would take a while, of course, to construct, and it would complement what the city's already working on. But so the city has kind of stalled out on. They've looked at purchasing some shares, some interest, if you will, in a natural gas plant in Idaho. And one of the snags they ran into there is that they don't get to make the decision. The owners and operators of the natural gas plant in Idaho get to decide who invests, and they haven't gone back to them yet. They also know that the city has need, because of growth, for acquiring additional capacity to meet future power needs. That's a known. That nobody has to even guess at that. But also they're saying this might be a way for Logan City to become, again, a little bit more energy independent, and is feasible and possible from the research they've found. It's kind of fascinating. The location and all of that would be up for much debate. So, this isn't going to happen anytime soon. But it was pointed out that because of their size and more in 2026, Charlie Schill points this out and it was brought up at the city council. Logan's going to be required to join what's called the California Independent System Operator Consortium. And it's got something called an extended day ahead market for power purchases. And that's because CAISO, the California Independent System Operator System, manages California's electricity transmission grid, which is for northern parts of Utah. We're dependent on that for purchasing power. So long story short, if they jack prices up, we're going to be paying them. And so the idea here is to, looking at that, especially peak daytime electrical load times, different ways to offset those times as often as possible. And what the Logan City Committee has found is that though battery technology isn't to a point where a solar energy farm could sustain the city permanently, and though it's not to the point, or cost-wise, Logan City couldn't have probably wouldn't want to afford to build a grid big enough to greatly change Logan City's power portfolio, if you will, energy portfolio, that for $60 million, they could build a 100-acre solar farm, which would take a lot of the stress off of the system as far as power supply goes and be very useful if that California grid system or even other local utilities jack prices up on short notice after a massive wildfire in another state, which is exactly what happened here in 2023, and Logan was going to be paying exorbitant prices. So it's a cool idea. I'm surprised, though, that it was the actual recommendation. I thought it would just be something they said they were going to keep exploring, but they said, no, we looked into it, and it would actually be possible, feasible, and probably a good idea for the city to break ground on this as soon as possible. If you want more details on the proposal, the story, again, at cachevalleydaily.com by Charlie Schill has quite a bit more, and also the presentation given to the council last week is available. I've linked to both on our Facebook page, and we'll be back with more of KVN News for the People right after this.
Here's what some of our patients have to say about how Red River has changed their lives.
So before I started at Red River, I was having a lot of stomach pain. I was overweight, severe anxiety. I had been to multiple doctors. We had done tests and no one could find anything that was wrong. And then a friend mentioned Red River and I went and saw him, and it has changed my whole life. I'm sleeping through the night. I have energy for my kids. I've lost 30 pounds. No more stomach pains. I just feel really good.
Our goal is to focus on imbalances that are driving your condition or symptoms, not just give you Band-Aid answers. So when a patient comes to our office, we'll sit down with them extensively and go over their blood work to find out the underlying imbalances driving their symptoms.
Call Red River Health and Wellness at 855-55-RIVER with offices in Logan, South Jordan, Springville, and St. George.
Call Red River today.
It's the Napa Gold Filter Sale, featuring up to 60% off filters for everything from your car, your backhoe, to your side-by-side. Get your machine fired up this season with Napa Premium Synthetic Oils, $3.99 a quart. Napa Synthetic Blend Motor Oils, $3.29 a quart. Seafoam Motor Tune-Up, $7.99 a can. The Gold Filter Sale, now through March 15 at your Preston to Providence Napa Auto Parts.
Napa know-how. Napa know-how.
If you have an aging loved one who could use a little extra help, you may wonder how much help is needed. Legacy House of Logan may be what you're looking for. Their different levels of care can accommodate your loved one no matter his or her needs. From daily tasks like dressing and bathing and medical administration to more advanced care for those with dementia. Legacy House of Logan offers all the comforts of home with a caring staff who really know how to take care of your loved ones. We invite you to stop by and see if Legacy House of Logan is right for your loved one on 1400 North in Logan.
The Above and Beyond Salute.
Hello.
Is Mary there?
This is her.
Hi, Mary. My name is Will Theelright. We like to recognize people once a week, and someone reached out to us anonymously and told us how you're a teacher of first grade students, and they also mentioned that you take the time to build relationships with your students and parents, and that you've had the ability to make a huge impact in their lives, and so we thought that deserved free lunch from Firehouse Subs.
I'd love that. That is so awesome.
The Above and Beyond Salute on News Talk KVNU.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. That is about all the time we have to today, and it's been kind of intense, right? Recapping the legislative session, that can sometimes angry up the blood. So I have two moment of Zen stories to send everybody on their way with this evening. What is the oldest living llama in captivity in the United States? If you've ever wanted to know, 27 years old, about 50 days shy of 28. And we know this because, according to the Associated Press today, reporting on the bucktooth llama spending his days comforting chronically ill children at the North Carolina camp. If you've probably heard of this camp, it was founded in 2006 by NASCAR driver Kyle Petty, son of the well-known great Richard Petty. And his family founded the camp in honor of Petty's own son, Adam, who was killed in a 2000 car crash practicing for a race. The camp focuses on chronically ill children, getting them out, getting them around animals, getting them, having fun and laughing. And this llama is part of that. And he turns 28 in about 2 months. So that is, again, on record, the oldest living llama in captivity in the United States. All right. And kind of a fun one for everyone. We'll see where this goes. But a massive movement got some steam in the form of a very wealthy donor. Longtime movement to get every elected official in Utah to pass a citizenship test. Well, it's never really gotten very far, despite its popularity. But a very wealthy businessman in Northern California donated nearly $12 million to the campaign effort. We'll see if it happens now. Check it out. I've linked to the full story on our Facebook page. Dave